What is checkov? Checkov is, as I'm thinking about this, is a static code analysis tool for infrastructure as code tool with focus on security. And with focus on security is kind of important here. It's not like general thing, while it can be general, but they focus on security. I will explain this a little bit more later. And checkov allows us to think about this as imperative way to write policies. So policies are written in Python. They are somewhere here. Everything in checkov is open source, and from user perspective, you can actually see what's going on. You can check out this project. You can see the history of it. You can see that, oh my God, there are more than 400 built-in policies. That's pretty cool, you may think. And then you see words like Kubernetes, GCP, Azure, CloudFormation, serverless framework. Well, so actually everything. Okay, that sounds good for AWS at all. No, not for AWS, for Terraform, I think there are 200 something policies, which is more than half, which is pretty good. So Terraform is our main focus here, okay? So what it means, I'm not gonna go through this documentation because I think it just self-explain. You all can go to documentation, and as someone gave me feedback about my previous stream, is that, well, we can look documentation ourselves. I appreciate this feedback very much. So I'm going to show you code. I'm not going to show you documentation as you asked. Here we are. So tf those samples. This is folder where I have my Terraform configuration. And let's start with very simple one. Okay, so I have security group. Okay, cool. I'm going to make a security group. And as you probably think, this is a little bit strange code. Well, this is not strange code because I can actually execute it. I can run Terraform init, it will download something, I run it already. Then I can run plan and it will actually create it. The flow here is that normally what we do, we run init, we run plan, we run apply, and then we run plan, apply, and then eventually destroy, or we go to another project. So here what we can do is that we can run init, and then we can run something like checkov. Checkov minus d. Well, if you are first time, then you can run checkov minus help, and then Python would execute, and Python would tell you that infrastructure as code static analysis tool. Cool, many different options. I always go through them, and then without reading too much details, I'm just going to run checkov something. Well, checkov something says like, oh, I need some arguments. Okay, checkov minus d dot. Thank you, punta switcher to change from d to v. But if I run minus d and dot, so this means that now checkov process this configuration file, which is inside of this folder, this minus d, and it tried to see if I violate some policies. There are a lot of different policies which are built in. I can optionally disable them, or I can write my own policies if I want. The thing is that it says passed and what exactly passed. Cool, so I didn't ensure that I open port 22 for everyone. That's a good sign. Well, but what if I want to? I will show you if I want to. Then it says, ensure every security group rule has a description. Well, I don't see any description here, do you? Well, I don't. So let me start with writing description something. Because here it says that ensure every security group has a description and it passed. This means that checkov thought that I already provided this, but I didn't provide it. Okay, so then I thought like, okay, maybe there is an error. So I looked into this one and I start writing something like my description. I can also write null if I want. I can also write var dot something if I want. But or I can also violate this description and write it more than 255 characters, right? So what if I write something very long? Imagine that me doing this stuff for the first time. I have no clue what I'm doing. So that's why this is cool stuff with a lot of bam bam. And I run this stuff and it says like, ensure every security group has a description. Well, yes, now it's there, and it is 1400 characters, so it is more than 255 characters. It gave me first impression that, hey, this rule is not executing. So I think like, yeah, probably it's not executing, so let's move on. I remove this description and I kind of think that, okay, this rule is probably enabled by default, but probably this rule is not tested enough. Well, for that one, I need to look into source code of this rule and figure out how this is actually written, why it's executing, why it's not working the way it's expected. Nevertheless, let's move on. So then I go to another like more real example, and I want to create security group where everything is open for everyone. Again, I run this -d dot, and now it says failed because now port 22 is actually open for this, like for everyone. Well, that's too bad, but I have no clue what I'm doing, so I can click on this link, which is really helpful in some places, but it's not really helpful that much for me because I have no clue what is JavaScript and why I'm seeing this. I would really prefer to see my code to be corrected for me. So like checkov already know where I violated this stuff. So please propose it, how this can be fixed. And I know that this is doable, and there is a paid offering which is provided by checkov creators where they can make pull requests for you to correct this misconfiguration. So which is pretty cool. So even if you don't understand what is actually the problem, reading this information will give you some information about like, oh, okay, so that's description. So that's actually the problem. Why it is not recommended. So I understand now. Then when I see some pieces of JavaScript like this, it's oh my god, I have no clue why I'm here doing this stuff. It's too complicated. So I scroll below and then again JavaScript. Well, it's not related to Terraform in first place. I wish it to be related to Terraform much more. And this is not hardest part to do. Anyway, let's move on. So the first thing was like easy. We specify something, then we can correct it to let's say to specify more precise sealer blocks. If I can do this, I just specify, let's say from 10 to now it's more precise. So now everything is passing. That's pretty cool. So I'm happy now. Now let's remove these comments or comment these lines, and let's move on a little bit like deeper. And now we are gonna let's say spin up instance. As you can see, I'm trying to spin up AMI 1234, which is not valid because it's just incorrect. And I'm from the future. I want to use instance of t-type t10.huge. And again, this kind of information is not for checkov. That's important to understand. The checkov is doing things related to the security in first place, while it can do a little bit more, to my opinion. So these kind of verifications are not for checkov. What it means is that if I run this code now, and it would tell me that it would tell me something, and this is where my like biggest challenge started. Is like ensure instance metadata version 1 is not enabled. Okay, well, there is no link to that one, so I have no clue where to go. Well, I go to official documentation and read about what is this AWS resource doing. What is metadata option? Okay, so instead of enabled, I should provide disabled. Cool, so that's what I did. I specified disabled. Now I run this checkov, and I see that this thing is now fixed. That's exactly what I wanted. But if at some point you want to tell checkov to just ignore this change, you can always add this annotation. And you can specify checkov skip and skip which exactly rule you want to skip and what should be the reason for this. So now if I run this and if I specify not disabled by enable, because we are not secure enough. Okay, so I don't care about this now, and I specify enabled, and then I run it. It says skipped for this resource because we like unsecure. Cool. So that's pretty much what you can do. By default, checkov will verify what it can do, and you can control it. You can enable a lot of things. You can disable a lot of checkov rules by specifying them, skip check, and provide list of these things which you don't care about. So it's pretty flexible here. Additionally, there are a lot of ways of outputting this information, which gives you possibility to embed this information inside of your CI/CD tool or different output formats like JUnit, JSON, GitHub failed only, which I guess is suitable if you're running checkov in GitHub Action, for example. So there are plenty of ways to do this. Now let's look into a little bit even more realistic example. Okay, what do we do? So first of all, we specify variable HTTP endpoint. Well, you put something here. Who use Terraform TFVars files or any TFVars files? I guess pretty much everyone, right? So you put something in TFVars file, you edit this only file somewhere, and maybe this is the only file which is different between your environments. So here it's not going to be picked up. What it means is that you are writing your Terraform configuration and you specify default values, but you also specify Terraform TFVars, which will be loaded automatically, right? At least that's your assumption. So if I specified enabled here and then disabled inside of Terraform TFVars, the value which is inside of Terraform TFVars will be used. But in fact, checkov will not read and will not process Terraform TFVars. Well, this is kind of a big surprise for me, because I assume that tool stay on top of my existing flow and understand that Terraform has this possibility to let's say to use Terraform TFVars files. These files will be automatically loaded. So I assume that checkov will do the same and will just process this file and will respect values which are specified there. Technically, it's rather easy to do because Terraform TFVars contain only static information, and it does not contain any interpolation or functions inside of it, so which means that it should be easy to expand. I know that guys are working on that, and maybe it's a low priority for them because that's not how they see people using Terraform, but to my opinion, hard code something here or inside a variable is like first level how you start using your Terraform. Then you put it inside of your Terraform TFVars, and then you figure out that, oh, you have secrets, then you put them into your TFVar environment variables, and then you figure out that you actually can generate a TF JSON file programmatically. Well, none of these options will not be picked up by checkov by default. Only what you specified here and what you specified in default will be respected. Yeah, that's one thing which is pretty important, I would say. When I run this kind of tool, I really like when tool tell me what it did or what kind of files it processed. So for checkov, it's pretty cool that they are doing. I will disable this check now, and if I run this now, well, no, it doesn't show, but sometimes it shows, like somewhere here, where this variable is coming from. So it can say how this var.http endpoint was extracted or how it was fetched. So this sometimes give me some information about what's going on and how checkov is doing or resolving this value. Occasionally, there are some situations which I have no clue why they even appear, like ensure all data stores in launch configuration EBS is securely encrypted. Well, I don't see any launch configuration EBS at all here. Where they are, I don't know. So occasionally there are things which are not related to the error itself, which means that I have to run checkov and then I have to disable something what is not relevant. I think this is like traditional problems of open source projects which are constantly developing. I know how things are from developers' point of view. So you start making something and then bugs and features, and whoever concur each one, then they win. So bug or feature, you never know. And the same happens here. If you see something like this, please open pull request or open an issue, and I'm sure that developers will take a look on this. Okay, a few other things which are related to the flow, which I want to highlight. So despite the fact that checkov is verifying values, and it has lots of rules, it's producing relevant output, which is usually easy to understand and easy to follow, and you can easily understand what exactly was the reason, which is really great. You need to understand that checkov is not the only tool which you have to put in your pipeline, and it's actually not the first tool which, in my opinion, has to be in your pipeline at all. So the first one which is like relevant is that will this even compile? Okay, so if I now run checkov -d and well, nothing. Okay, is it good? Is it bad? Let's see. Well, it's good. Well, no, it's bad because it's this one. So for this kind of situation, what you still need to do is that you need to write validate. So Terraform validate will actually verify that syntax is correct, and it will complain because wow, that's exactly what I want. So yes, that's what I want. I want to see that okay, code is not valid, so definitely there is no point to run any other tool. So first you run Terraform validate, and second one is like, are we even talking about issues or about values which make sense, like T2 huge? Is it a good one? Well, probably not. Maybe it will be released in 20 years, but right now there is no T10.huge. So I want Terraform code to be reviewed. And that's where other tools like tflint are doing a good job. While checkov is focusing on next phase. Checkov is actually verifying things related to the security in first place. While technically, I don't see the reason why checkov cannot do this validation as well. Maybe we can ask Barak about this in Q&A. As a reminder, please join a Zoom call right now, and we will go there in few minutes. I'm almost done with my review of checkov, like at least for the time being. But before that, let me go. Wait, where is it? Yes. Let me like summarize my overall vision of checkov. Checkov, as well as 10 other tools in this field, are essential part of most of pipelines. What I think is that checkov is doing a good job focusing on security, while it can do even better job by picking low-hanging fruits like tflint is doing. I'm not saying that tflint is a bad project or it has to be decommissioned in any way because checkov is superior. Absolutely not. They are doing very similar job, but from slightly different angles. So checkov is written in Python, another one is written in Go. It depends where you are coming from. You may prefer one language over another. I'm not a fan of language debates and say like this can be done in Python easier, better, faster, and so on. The same with any other language or tool comparison. I only review them by what they actually do. If I can do this in one tool efficiently, faster, without less headache, without less magic, it's great. When I was using checkov for this preparation and before, I looked at this as well, checkov gives you tips like what can be done, or take a look on this improvement, or maybe this is wrong. I'm never able to trust like 100% of whatever checkov says is absolutely true. I use it as one of several tools which I respect equally. And if one tool said that there are 10 violations of different rules, and TF-Lin says that there are 15 violations of this rule, for me this means that, okay, 25 issues has to be reviewed with exactly the same amount of meticulously. So I'm not able to say that this tool is better or not. In real life, what I was showing here is that we're not writing resources so much, or at least I'm not advocating to write resources so much. I'm advocating to use building blocks. Okay, so module, VPC, and then source, and then you know what to write. So here is how we write something. Okay, so this is a building block which expects a lot of inputs to be sent. Okay, so now if I run checkov, you can imagine what will happen, right? It will just say that, okay, checkov, here is it. Right, so it will just ignore that there is any module block here. And you may think like, oh yeah, cool, my code is now perfectly fine. Well, I would really appreciate if checkov could honestly tell me that, hey, I was trying to process these files in this directory, and I was able to understand that HTTP endpoint was hard-coded through default, but I ignored tf-json file, tf-vars file, module blocks, pretty much everything what we use on any production load or any kind of infrastructure which we want to work with, right? So our infrastructure is usually consists of module, and they're somehow interconnected, passing values between themselves and so on. That's the whole point of Terraform. While I totally understand people who are coming from, who are new to Terraform, they go to registry documentation, they read about different resources, and then they're thinking about, oh, let's make this awesome building block, and they use just resources. But highly scalable or well-designed infrastructures are not consistent of resources in first place. And if you disagree with me, please tell me that I'm wrong. But my vision is that we have to use much more existing solutions. Right now there are 4,000 modules in the registry. Why on earth you need to write resource for I don't know, for what else? For VPC, for ACM, for ALB, for what else you need to write? For API gateway, for anything else, you don't need to do that. Yeah, but I don't want to sound like I'm how to say, disappointed, or I'm saying something bad about different tools. Well, this is first tool which I'm reviewing. Believe me, there will be more things. Checkov is definitely not the worst one or not the best one. For me, as I said, all of these tools are in very good shape of trying fixing bugs, trying different approaches, and so on. So we will have to do this continuously until there is one tool which does, let's say, 90% of things. Currently, all of these tools are doing different things pretty much equally. I would say if we have 4 tools, then they are doing, let's say, overall like 50%, not 100%. Okay, so from my side, this was pretty much it. Now I want to see. Yeah, now. So one more time, thanks Barak for finding time and um, for attending this improvised tool review. Hopefully, I didn't say so much bad things because you actually do a really good job, and I'm sure that you was like as far as I remember, Checkov appeared early on in all of this field, and yeah, you do have a lot of users.
Yeah, sure. So we actually open sourced checkov last Christmas, December 2019, back when flights were existing and there was such a thing as offices, and we didn't only work from home back in the good old days. And at the beginning, it supported only Terraform, not all of the 5 infrastructure as code frameworks. And the way we started with it is we saw a lot of customers want to remediate issues in the cloud very early on with a very fast feedback loop. And the existing tools like AWS Config or Trusted Advisor are pretty good. But the thing is, they are coming very late in the game. They're coming after resources are being provisioned. So we thought of how can we catch misconfigs prior to deployment and have a very fast feedback loop with the developer. The AWS account usually contains resources from all of the developers in your organization that needs to provision there. If you have a pre-commit hook with checkov installed or with any other security tool scanning your infrastructure, you can catch them before provisioning, and you can know that you have done that issue before applying it to your Git. You can also attach checkov as part of your CI/CD system like Circle CI or GitLab Runner, and there is documentation in the GitHub repository of how to do that. Or you can use it via Docker deployment or any other way. I think that a few cool stuff that you've mentioned also that might be useful is we heard a lot of need about composition analysis over modules. We actually scanned a lot of modules over the internet and discovered that in some of the defaults are opinionated, and checkov is an opinionated tool. We are relying on best practices like CIS, SOC 2, PCI, etc. And we try to understand if the default value would adhere to that standard. In some cases, it shouldn't. Like in some cases, you would like port 80 to be open, or in some cases, you would like port SSH to be open. Let's say it's a lab environment, or you actually has a business use case for it. So we enable users to suppress a check fully or suppress a specific resource. And we really want the tool to improve. From what we've seen, modules, we would love to see them much highly more used. We do believe it's the right way to write Terraform. But in most of our customers' environment, we do see people tinker with the resource block. And for that reason, that's the first piece to be supported in checkov. But we do have the need to support modules. So it's part of our roadmap. And we would gladly receive any contribution that way. Checkov already has around 42 contributors and an active Slack channel with 130 people. You're welcome to join. Where we try to collect more and more feedback on the required features. And we develop them using your votes on GitHub. So if you give a vote for module or give a vote for TF-VARS issue or any other issue, we'll try to make sure that someone will pick it up and write the code for it. Other than that, I think that it's the fastest growing project among the 4 security projects around Terraform. It is the most downloaded one with more than 700K downloads since last December. And it is being used in very large enterprises, from cloud vendors themselves, banks, and our own customers. So it is running in production in a lot of environments that I'm aware of, and there is definitely a way to go to support all of the scenarios of usage in Terraform.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that there are people who are using it in very big setups. And one of the reasons why I think this is the case is because people need something. And like, if we look back into the history, when we didn't have Terraform, what we wanted to manage our infrastructure. So give us anything where we can see plan, like what's going to happen. Okay, here is Terraform. That's solved. At least for me personally, this was one of the biggest or the easiest way to sell Terraform to customers back then. Like, I showed them something what was a solution for their problem. And now people say like, oh no, that's not good enough because we want something else. But at least back then it was easier. And the same with checkov. Like you guys early on in this train, and now your job is to stay on this train and listen to your existing customers, as well as add at least these features which are missing to my opinion, which I mentioned earlier, because they are used and they are advocated or more or less set up as best practices.
Definitely.
So yeah, I think you are just doing great job for 1 year. You have 10 years in front of you. Go on.
Well, thank you. Yeah. So I think another very nice use case of checkov that we've seen customers doing is writing their own custom policies and hosting them in a shared GitHub repositories. So one of the big deployments that we heard about have created their own set of about 100 custom policies written in Python on their Terraform code. Like, they wanted best practices around tagging and governance, and also to govern the type of EC2s that are being provisioned. Mm-hmm. So they created, let's call this org Acme as an example. It's a very large energy company. And what they've created is a GitHub repository with 100 different rules, and they apply them against every run of a developer in the org. And they had about 50 infrastructure as code developers. Some of them are contractors, some of them are well-trained, and everybody adhere to the policies of that organization.
Yeah, but if we look at this situation where you say that customers are heavily reliant on checkov, do they also rely on some other tools?
Right.
The problem which I observe myself is, and you also highlighted this, is checkov executing too early, right? So that's why AWS Config, CloudTrail, and a bunch of other services exist.
Definitely.
So can you explain, like, can you maybe go a little bit in your vision of the tool set, let's say, from writing Terraform code, what do you see like going
Definitely.
on? Maybe checkov is going to expand and suddenly kill OPA?
All right, so the way we look at it is Bridgecrew, the entire suite of Bridgecrew, supports static analysis from the endpoint on a pre-commit hook, CI/CD pipeline, and the Bridgecrew SaaS offering also scans your AWS, Azure, or GCP account. So with the Bridgecrew platform, with the entire suite, you can catch things very early on while developing, and also after the fact, just like AWS Config, but with much more policies. And via the platform, you can write one policy that will catch both things on build time and on runtime after provisioning. So we give our own platform with a freemium tier for that case. Other than that, there are a set of open source tools that helps to catch things post-provisioning, like Prowler, which is doing a set of API polling and gets the status of your cloud environment, and OPA, which is part of the CNCF, that can run over plan files. Plan files contain the result values of some of the variables, and also result values of environment variables that you are injecting in some cases. Depends how you inject them. And what I would recommend is to have, if you're keep sticking to open source, is using checkov on a pre-commit and CI/CD, and use OPA post plan. And the one thing to know about on OPA, plan usually requires some of the environment variables that are only on Jenkins or CI/CD pipeline or wherever you're managing those shared variables. So it's a bit later on. It has its advantages, which is much more context, but disadvantages, which is much slower feedback loop than checking it on your own endpoint.
Mm. Well, but plan you can run without too much permissions.
That's correct.
You just plan you can run with read-only access to even production infrastructure.
Yeah, we've seen a lot of customers with a lot of developers that does not have access to production. Only to
well, as read-only, you can. I mean, of course, you may have difficulties to explain that if I have read-only, I'm not going to destroy anything. But that's the point of Terraform plan, is that you can run it with very limited environments, credentials, and run it the way you want as early as possible.
Yeah, that is right. We have seen some friction there.
Cool. I have pretty much like personal question.
Yeah, sure.
Why Python? Why not Go?
Yeah, sure. So checkov was designed as a security tool, and most of the security practitioners that we've worked with up until this day are used to Python from other security tools. Mm. So our first audience was security engineers, also DevOps, and also in the DevOps community, Python is still more common than Go. So it's just trying to choose the language that is more common for our users.
Mm. Yeah, I see. Yeah, I was observing this myself, but then Go is a language of DevOps tools.
It is, but still, from Stack Overflow statistics, not as common as Python.
Yeah, exactly. Guys, we are 7 people right now. Feel free to unmute yourself and ask questions if you have any. I can see that Santosh asked strategies to back up TF state. Well, I don't think it's related to checkov, but we can make it to be related to checkov. Does checkov think about anything else than static analysis of config files? Can we write checkov to verify that TF state file is versioned, like real TF state file?
Like
not the configuration, but real. Can we access something for real, and can we see the TF state is versioned, for example?
So another nice thing about checkov, since it's written in Python, you can create your own policy that is going to APIs. So another thing that some of the policies that customer might write is, hey, run this policy that is doing an API call and return back. So you can create a policy that goes to your bucket, your TF state bucket, if you're managing it there, or you can scan your local state using Python, just custom one, and then have the same consistent reporting format that checkov has if you inherit from the basic class of a policy, of a check.
Yeah. Okay. Sounds easy to do. It's doable. And what about documentation for writing these rules? Because I was trying to figure out how things are written when I was preparing for this, and I was looking in source code and trying to follow up. I see that some people seems to understand how to contribute, but me as a newcomer, I didn't feel like, oh yeah, it's easy, just copy paste this file.
Oh, so
I was looking probably in wrong direction.
I can share my screen real
Yeah.
quick and
Yeah,
show
that
how
would
it
be
looks
good.
like.
Yeah.
Right. So, all right. So I'm here in the checkov GitHub repository. What I can choose to do is hit the documentation website and go to those different items in the menu and choose custom policies. Under custom policies, there is an example of how to write a policy around PCI related resources. So here's an original snippet and just a custom policy being written.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So for that one, I saw this example, but then I looked into real source code, and then I found that those real samples or real policies are much more complicated than this one.
So you might choose how to develop those policies. We chose some base classes with inheritance that are doing some of the repetitive work. Another reason to choose an imperative language, you can use inheritance. So we have an inherited check for checking Booleans only, using dpath, or another inheritance check for ports, etc. So we are just utilizing encapsulation of Python classes.
Cool. So yeah, more people should give it a try and see how they understand it. And yeah, cool. What about other questions from people? Do you guys have any questions or answers or feedback? Looks like no. No one wants to be unmuted. Okay, so then I think we can finish here. I think it was pretty cool to have you with us, and thanks a lot for showing how things are actually working inside.
Yeah, sure.
Thanks all 6 or 7 people who attended this Zoom continuation of live stream, and let's take it from there.
All right. Thank you, Anton.
Thanks, everyone. Thank you, Barak. Bye.